Here's a dietitian's review on Vega Protein and Greens plant-based protein powder. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing one of Vega's really well-known plant-based protein powders known as Protein and Greens. Basically, it's a protein powder and a greens powder put together. In this video, I'm going to review its ingredients, their amounts, and whether I think the product is actually worth buying. But first, hi, my name is Katey. I'm a registered dietitian and certified personal trainer. My goal with this channel is to help you learn more about nutrition, fitness, and wellness so that you can be your best, whatever that looks like. I also love to do product reviews, so if you have any products or topics that you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments below. And let's get started. What is Vega? Vega is a plant-based supplement company that has a ton of different products. However, they are mostly known for their plant-based protein powders, and they have quite a few of these as well. Originally, Vega was founded by a vegan triathlete known as Brendan Brazier. In 2015, it was sold to White Wave Foods, and then in 2017, the company Danone, which is that yogurt company that a lot of us are familiar with, they bought it from White Wave Foods. That being said, in 2021, Danone sold it to a private equity firm known as WM Partners. And that's the company that currently owns it. At least at the time I'm filming this, they've had a lot of different owners. With that all being said, basically Vega is a plant-based supplement company. And their main goal is to make nutrition-based products that are obviously plant-based, but also support the environment as well. Now, today we're specifically going to be talking about Vega Protein and Greens powder. However, they do have a lot of other protein powders on the market. So if you want me to review those as well, I certainly can. Just let me know in the comments below. All right, so what is Vega Protein and Greens powder? So now that we've gone through the company itself, let's talk about the product because that's what we're here for. In a nutshell, it is a plant-based protein powder at face value, and it has some greens added to it to enhance the nutritional composition of the powder. If we take a look at the nutrition label, we see that it has 20 grams of plant-based protein. And if you've watched any of my other protein powder videos, you'll know by now that I do prefer a protein powder that has at least 20 grams of protein per scoop, if not more. So definitely this protein powder has that minimum requirement that I like to see of 20 grams of protein per scoop. Now, if we take a look at the ingredient list, we see that the protein itself comes from a few different plants. It comes mostly from pea protein and brown rice protein. It does also have sachaichi powder, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which may contribute to the protein composition as well. Now, the reason why there are multiple protein sources is because when it comes to plant-based proteins, we have to keep in mind that for the most part, with the exception of soy protein, they are not complete proteins, meaning they don't have all essential amino acids. So to get around this for a plant-based protein powder, they add different protein sources to make sure that they cover all of those amino acids. In terms of the exact amino acid composition, unfortunately, Vega does not provide this. And I would say that is a major downside. I absolutely love it when companies provide the amino acid profile. That being said, under their Q&A, they do provide a general range. As I've talked about in my other videos, the amino acid composition is important, especially if you're taking a protein powder for muscle building, because we want to make sure that it has, yes, a variety of those amino acids, because a variety of amino acids is certainly important for muscle building, but we also want to make sure that it has a good amount of a branched chain amino acid known as leucine, because leucine in particular has been shown in research studies to really push forward muscle protein synthesis for muscle building. Now, the ideal amount of leucine is debatable, but generally speaking, at least 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per serving is a good goal to have. If we look at the general amino acid profile that Vega provided, remember this is a general overview and it is not guaranteed that your specific protein powder is going to have this, but if we assume that it generally will have it roughly, we see that it has 1.7 grams of leucine, but I would say it's more so on the low to middle end of it. Now, like I mentioned, ideally a protein powder would have a higher amount of leucine, but that doesn't mean that the leucine in this product isn't going to do absolutely anything for you. Unfortunately, according to a position statement that came out by the International Society of Sports Nutrition, as long as a protein powder has at minimum about 0.7 grams or about 700 milligrams, muscle protein synthesis or muscle building can actually happen in protein powders with a dose of leucine as low as 0.7 to 1.0 grams. So I'm not trying to say that just because this protein powder doesn't have the optimal amount of leucine that it doesn't work and it's the worst protein powder on the market. By no means am I saying that. More would certainly be nice, but the amount in this product isn't awful. Granted, this is only based on the premise that the actual Vega protein powder that you're going to be consuming has that amount of leucine that Vega gave as their general range, which again, they don't test for, so we can't guarantee it at this time. It's probably similar, but it would be nice to test it and show it for sure. But like anything, being more diligent and giving that actual test and actually showcasing the amount of amino acids in your product is something that I think a lot of people would appreciate. Also keep in mind that plant-based protein powders in general tend to be lower in leucine compared to a whey protein powder, which is considered the gold standard for protein powders. So if you are dead set on having a plant-based protein powder, you're likely going to have a lower amount of leucine than if you were to have a whey-based protein powder. And like I mentioned, if you are dead set on having a plant-based protein powder, this is a decent option. Beyond the protein, it does also have some additional greens added to the product. This includes spinach powder, kale powder, alfalfa grass powder, broccoli powder, and rosemary extract. I wouldn't say that this is the most robust greens mix on the planet, but it could add a little bit of extra nutrition, which we can see from the nutrition label. For example, it has 25% the RDA of vitamin K, it has some potassium and calcium, it has 22% the RDA of iron. Keep in mind though, because it is a plant-based protein powder, we automatically know that it's non-heme iron, which is less bioavailable compared to heme iron that is found in animal-based products. The good news here is that the product does have some vitamin C, and vitamin C helps to increase our body's absorption of non-heme iron. So it could help a little bit there. That being said, this isn't an iron supplement, so it's not something I'm really overly concerned about anyway. You'll also notice that the product has a little bit of fat with about 2.5 grams per serving. It could come from a couple sources, but I would surmise that the main source is actually from the Sacha-ichi powder that I mentioned earlier. And basically what Sacha-ichi is it's a seed that is full of healthy fats as well as protein. Beyond these ingredients, the product also does have stevia, which is a natural sweetener. And the reason they add this is to replace the need for adding sugar so that the product tastes a lot better. That being said, not everyone loves the aftertaste that stevia has. I can tell when there's stevia in a product, so I'm not particularly fond of it. I can sometimes get over it depending on the product itself, but that's an individual thing and you're gonna have to decide that for yourself. Finally, the product does have xanthan and guar gum, which are emulsifiers that are typically added to protein powders to help the product ingredients stick together and help to improve the overall consistency of the product. Like I mentioned in a lot of my protein powder videos, gums are very, very common as an ingredient in protein powders. Again, because they do such a good job blending the ingredients together and really making the product as effective as possible. You can find protein powders out there that don't have gums, it's just harder to find. And technically speaking, these gums are generally recognized as safe by all major health authorities such as the FDA, Health Canada, and the European Food Safety Authority. That being said, if you choose not to consume products that have gums, then this product wouldn't be right for you, but I would argue that most protein powders wouldn't be right for you in this case. And the thing about protein powders is that while they are absolutely helpful for getting higher protein intakes and supporting muscle growth, there's still a processed product at the end of the day. And so you don't want to be making that your main source of protein in your diet. Now, in terms of flavoring, they do have a variety of different flavors. Interestingly, the Canadian website has more flavors compared to the US website, which I find very interesting because that's usually not the case. So every flavor is going to have slightly different ingredients based on the flavoring agents that they use. So for example, the chocolate one has cocoa powder. The berry flavor has beetroot powder to help give it that berry color, and it also has natural flavors to make it taste like berry. The salted caramel, vanilla, and coconut almond all have natural flavors as well to make them taste like whatever the product flavor is. Just a note though, when it comes to the term natural flavors, what this means is that the flavors are made based on naturally derived ingredients. So they aren't artificially made. However, they're not the exact same as using the specific ingredient itself. So for example, natural vanilla would be derived from the vanilla bean. That being said, vanilla flavor doesn't necessarily have to be from the vanilla bean itself, but can be made from natural sources that taste like vanilla. And that's it for ingredients. Honestly, I'd say overall that their ingredient list is pretty simple, and I think a lot of people nowadays are looking for more simple ingredient lists, so that is a positive. Compared to a traditional greens powder, I'd argue that this one's on the lower end and it doesn't have a ton of greens actually in the product, but it may be a nice little addition to your typical protein powder that doesn't have any greens added to it, and it might just contribute a tiny bit of nutrition. That being said, you certainly do not need to add greens to your protein powder, and really you don't need greens powders at all. You can take a greens powder to help increase your nutrient intake a little bit, but you'd be much better off actually consuming whole vegetables and fruit. For a protein powder, I think it is a decent one for a plant-based protein powder. I still think that a whey-based protein powder is ideal, but I understand that not everyone can have whey protein powder, whether it's because they have a milk allergy or they don't consume animal products. Okay, so how much does it cost? This is where things get a little confusing because the Canadian website and the American website differ a little bit, and their sizing is very, very strange, at least in my opinion. So generally speaking, they have two main sizes. They have small and medium. The small has 16 to 18 servings, and the medium has 19 to 21 servings. To be honest, for a matter of like 3 serving difference, I don't see the point in having 2 different size containers. I think that's really redundant and unnecessary. And to be honest, I find it really ridiculous that companies even offer protein powders that are less than 30-day supplies. I actually like it when they have like 60, 90-day supplies because it's a protein powder and it can last that long. But really, to have less than 30-day supply of a protein powder, I just think it's really inconvenient for the consumer. So for the medium container, it is $42.99 US or $46.99 Canadian. For the smaller container, it's $34.99 US or $35.29 Canadian. Now for an average product, it's actually usually cheaper to buy a larger container, but in this case, it's not, which is really odd. It actually seems to be cheaper to buy the smaller container. I also find it odd that the prices are very similar for US and Canadian dollars because the US dollar is just so much stronger than the Canadian dollar at this time. At least based on their website, it appears that the US product is actually more expensive than the Canadian one, which almost never happens. So just keep in mind that buying on the website might not be your best option. If you really want to save money, I would actually buy it from Walmart or Amazon or maybe a local store because they do seem to be cheaper than the actual website. So is the product third-party tested? Based on my understanding, it's again very confusing. The company does have third-party tested products, but not all of them. Third-party testing just helps to ensure consistency and quality of the ingredients, which is important for a lot of people, and I would say that it's something you should look for. Here's the thing, on their labels, they don't specifically say that the product is third-party tested, but when I Google or when I go on their website, they do tend to say that their products are third-party tested or at least abide by a very strict quality assurance program. I did reach out to Vega twice on the Canadian website and the US website, and they do say that the Vega Protein and Greens powder is third-party tested. But then they also say that in some cases, their products are third-party tested by accredited labs. So it's really unclear if all of the products are third-party tested or some of them are third-party tested. When I asked them, they said it was third-party tested, so I guess we can assume that. It's just not very clear, so that is a huge downside, and they really should make it clear because people care about that. To go one additional step, I did go to some of the really popular third-party testing companies and search up Vega to see if they did third-party testing. And I can only find their sports protein powder under Informed Choice, which is a third-party testing company. So at this time, I'm not really convinced fully that it is third-party tested, so take it as you will, at least for now. This isn't to say that the company doesn't have a good protein powder, and they do really go out of their way to say that they have a very strong quality assurance program, so that is reassuring. I just think that they should really make it abundantly clear if they do third-party testing because, again, people care about that and I care about that. On another note that I want to just talk about briefly is that Vega, as well as other plant-based protein companies, have come under fire for having heavy metals in their products. But I really want to clarify this because I do think a lot of consumers are concerned about this when I'm not overly concerned personally. Plant-based protein powders are naturally going to be higher in heavy metals compared to like a whey protein powder that's from an animal source. The reason why is because the ingredients are grown in soil, which naturally have some of these heavy metals. And when we're saying heavy metals, it just means that they could potentially lead to negative health effects when we're exposed to them or we consume them in very high amounts. The thing is though, is you really have to consider the dose because the dose makes the poison at the end of the day. So for example, arsenic and mercury are considered heavy metals. Now the reason why they've come under fire particularly is because of California Prop 65, which I'm not the biggest fan of because I think that while it was a good initiative in the beginning, really trying to just have consumers aware of what's in their product, because again, they don't really strongly consider the dose that you're actually exposed to when consuming different products and foods. And the thing to keep in mind is that there are harmful things in all of our foods. So for example, technically speaking, there are heavy metals that are naturally present in a lot of vegetables and fruits because they grow in the soil. The thing is, they're in such low amounts that they're not considered dangerous to human health. And of course, vegetables and fruit are extremely good for our health. And if you think about it, even drinking too much water can be harmful, so the dose really does make the poison. And Vega does clearly state that they do testing for heavy metals and that their amounts are below any type of dangerous threshold. So at this time, I would say that their product likely has lower amounts of heavy metals, and I personally don't think it's a concern at this time. However, if there's new information that comes out or there's research that says otherwise, then I'm open to changing my mind on that as well. So it's always important to be an informed consumer and stay up to date with a lot of the emerging health research out there. I just think that it's really important that you don't just randomly believe any random social media post or website, and don't take necessarily everything Clean Label Project says at face value. It can be a helpful tool, but I tend to find that it does fearmonger and go a little overboard than it really needs to. But that being said, it's up to you whether or not you want to consume the product, and if it is a concern for you, then don't consume it. I don't care. I want to give you the information as it is. Okay, so should you buy Vega Protein and Greens? Overall, I would say that Vega Protein and Greens powder is a decent option. It has 20 grams of protein per serving, which is great. I would love for it to have slightly more leucine. I'd love for them to actually have a really accurate rating of their amino acid profile too, but it's not awful, especially for a plant-based protein powder. The greens mix might add a few extra nutrients, but I don't think it's that robust, and I don't necessarily think that they needed to add the greens powder to this product. Personally, I think it's more for marketing because some people are really fascinated with adding greens to their diet. I just don't think it's overly necessary, especially for a protein powder. The thing about greens powders, and I've talked about this before, is I would much rather you focus on a diet rich in a variety of different plants, because different plants are going to give you fiber, they're going to give you vitamins and minerals, they're going to give you antioxidants and phytochemicals, and they act synergistically, so they're going to have more of a benefit on your health than taking a little bit of extra greens in a supplement would. Is it my favorite protein powder out there? No, but it is an option. Would I personally buy it? Probably not, but that's because I prefer whey protein powders. I just think that there's more robust research on them, and I would consider their overall nutrient composition better than plant-based proteins. But if you prefer a plant-based protein powder, this could be a decent option for you. Of course, Vega does have other protein powders out there, so again, if you want me to review them, just let me know in the comments below, and I can let you know if this is a better one or the other ones are better. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other products or topics that you want me to cover, and if you did enjoy this video, I would love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel, because your support helps me reach more people like you. And I'll see you in the next video.